Mike, I'll call it. The Serenity Prayer's been real important to me. It's one of the most important prayers. I think it's probably the first example, if not the example, of the reason why we say some have to die so that others may live. Because, I believe that God had His hand in the formation of AA, and the fact of the matter is that when Bill was writing the book, they found the Serenity Prayer while he was reading the obituaries in the newspaper. So somebody had to die so we could have this poem, because we wouldn't have it without that. I think that that's very telling at how I need to really cherish this program, because God did have His hand in the formation of this thing. When I think about the Serenity Prayer, I think about how it talks about, it's very empowering to me, but it also gives me some responsibility. Because what this prayer tells me is that I play a part in my recovery. It talks about God doing His part, and then it talks about me doing my part. And I think that's real important, and of course it goes along with what the rest of the book talks about. Faith without works is dead. As much as I would like to just pray hard enough and God do it all, this prayer tells me that I play a part. And sometimes I have to face this part that I play with courage. And God gives me the strength to do that, but He expects me to do that. Another thing that the Serenity Prayer tells me is that when I think about the Serenity Prayer, I think about how the 12 and 12 talks about the answer to the riddle has to do with the quality of my faith rather than its quantity. And sometimes I'll just go around and say, God, grant me the serenity, because another book talks about God knows what's in my heart, even though I don't have to say it. So it's about the quality of my faith and how sincerely I'm taking the position rather than how much I'm saying. When I think about that, it just shows me how important this prayer has been. Another thing that what this prayer tells me is it's just a small piece of that prayer. There's 2 more long stanzas to it, and in that, the rest of the stanza, it really tells me one of the main aims of what this program is trying to show me is that I need to get right-sized. Because in one of the other stanzas, it talks about, I want to be reasonably happy in this life so I can be supremely happy in the next. And that goes along with what it says in the big book, where it doesn't say the best years of my existence lie ahead. It says the most satisfactory years of my existence lie ahead. So the real trick and the real aim to me of the program is to fit me so I can be okay with reasonableness, and that I can be okay with satisfactory, because those are 2 things I was never okay with. It was either the best or I quit. I was either the best or I took my toys home. And what this prayer in particular, and why it goes along with the rest of the program so well, is because it says I need to get right-sized and a lot of times accept things the way they are, but at the same time realizing that I'm not powerless over everything. Again, this prayer tells me that. It tells me, and that's why it's so empowering, because it says, yeah, there's things you have to accept, but it also says there's things you can do. And this entire program, especially when I say the program, I say the first 164 pages, it's an empowerment program. The word powerless is only used 1 time in the first 164 pages. The word power is used 63 times. I think that's important to take a look at, the fact that it's saying, yes, I need to admit this devastating weakness, but then it takes me through a process that shows me how much I can really do in my life. And if I don't think I have power over anything at all, I need to take a look at page 82, where it talks about I'm like the guy coming out of the cyclone cellar after the tornado. Right? It says I was a tornado going through people's lives. A tornado is a very powerful negative force. And if I accept that I was a powerful negative force in people's lives, with this program, I have to also accept, yin and yang, that I can be a powerful positive force. Maybe not all the time. But this is, like I'm saying, I'm making a case for this being a very empowering prayer. But at the same time, it gives me responsibility. Now, if I'm not willing to step up and take that responsibility, then I'm not going to get the power. If I just expect God to do it all, I'm going to be sadly disappointed. Because if God did it all, if it all had to do with just a fervent prayer, we'd be meeting in Legion Field. But here we are in the same room that we was meeting in the late 80s when I got here. So that tells me that it takes people playing their part. Because I believe God wants us all to be sober. But unfortunately, He would let me walk right out this door and go to the state store. So that's why with this program, when it helps me clear these bad motives and it helps me see these things about myself and helps me start working to be a better person, that's when page 86 says I can rely on my mental faculties with assurance. It said when my mind is clear to these wrong motives, only then can I rely on my faculties with assurance. If I'm still shackled with the chains of the past and listening to those old voices and letting them rule me, my mental faculties are not good, and I need not rely on them. But my point is that since I've worked these programs, my mental faculties have never been sharper. My best thinking did not get me here. I've experienced my best thinking since I've got here. And if you want to argue that, that's fine. If that ain't for you, that's fine. Believe me, that's why we're still meeting here and not in Legion Field. This ain't for everybody. But the reason I keep coming back here after all these years is because I believe that there's newcomers downtrodden and in despair that need a message of experience, strength, and hope, not war stories, weakness, and despair. I could find something to come in here and bitch at y'all about. Hey, look, there's a noise my car's making, my fucking roof leaks, and one of my dogs is scratching his fucking ear for a month. I mean, I could figure something to be upset about. But in the grand scheme of things, the problems I have today, I think I'll take them over the ones I had when I got here. I'll pass.